Hey, what is up guys? My name is Oleg. This is Bond. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to do a full review of Omega Speedmaster Automatic. I bought this watch about 4 months ago, something like that. I bought it for two reasons. Actually 3 reasons. Number 1, I really wanted one. It was my grail watch for a long time. Number 2, to celebrate the fact that I ran my first marathon. And since then I got out of shape again. And number 3, the fact that the channel reached 10,000 subscribers, but I bought the watch way before the channel reached 10,000 subscribers. I actually did an unboxing video for this watch. That video can be found on the channel. I will also link it in the description below. So how do I feel about the watch after 4 months? Do I still love it? Well, let's get started. Omega Speedmaster Automatic. Let's start this review by looking at the case dimensions, because this diameter has been a subject of debate on the internet for a while. Some people claim it's a 37mm watch, some people say 38, some people say 39. So what does my caliper measure? So if you go like this, it measures it at about 38.8, about 38.5. So I'd say it's about 38.5mm in diameter, including the bezel. It's about 44.5mm from one lug to another. It has a thickness of 12.5mm and a lug width of 18 millimeters. Here's what the watch looks like on my 7.5 inch wrist. Some people say this watch is too small, and I can understand where they're coming from. I think the diameter is not that small. I think the lug to lug distance of only 44.5 millimeters makes this watch appear smaller on the wrist. I have kind of a mid-sized wrist, 7.5 inches, and I think it fits just right. However, if you're into bigger watches, of course go for the kind of big brother of this watch, the Omega Speedmaster Professional. The watch has a stainless steel case with the stainless steel bracelet. We'll talk about a bracelet in a minute here. So the finish on the case is pretty good. Now this is of course a used version of Omega Speedmaster Automatic. I bought this one on eBay. I paid $16.50 for this US dollars, plus I had to pay import charges. I know a lot of you guys in the comment section will be asking about import charges. So yes, I did have to pay them. I think they were about 150, 200 US dollars, something like that. But overall, the condition is still really good. So we can see some brushing still remaining on the sides of the case. And then we have kind of this polished lug. It's a very interesting shape to the case. And actually, this Omega Speedmaster Automatic and the Speedmaster Professional, the big brother of this watch, share a very, very similar case shape. The only difference is, of course, the size. The other difference between this and the Professional is the position of pushers. So as you can see here, the pushers on the reduced version or the automatic version, the one that I have, are not aligned. They're not on the same line as the crown. Of course, the crown is at the 3 o'clock position. The pushers are at 2 and 4, but they're not on the same level. And that's because Omega, for this watch, uses a modular movement. What that basically means is that they took a ETA 2890 movement. They also added a module to it to make it into a chronograph movement. That's why this watch has a movement with so many joules. It has a movement with 46 joules. It has a power reserve of 40 hours, and it beats at 28,800 beats per hour. So they gave this module ETA movement their own name. So it's a caliber 3220. Omega kind of named it for themselves, but nevertheless it's an ETA based movement. A lot of people don't like this movement, and there's a good reason why, because they claim it's an expensive movement to service. Now I personally haven't serviced the watch yet, so I'm hoping not to be in for a rude awakening or for a rude surprise when I do take it to the watchmaker. However, I do have a few different watchmakers. I'm probably not going to service it with Omega themselves because I know they're going to charge me an arm and a leg. I'll probably do another follow-up video in the future, tell you about the servicing experience of this watch. Maybe I'll take it to Omega just to get a quote. Maybe take it to a third party, like a more higher end store. We have one here in Vancouver. That's where I'm based. They sell a lot of Omega watches. They are AD, and they also do servicing for these watches. So I'll ask maybe there, and then I will also ask 1 or 2 of my watchmakers and kind of compare the different quotes, and then also tell you about my servicing experience. That is all to come in the future. As far as the accuracy for this movement, I'm getting plus 5 seconds per day, so that's really good. I don't think the movement needs servicing yet. I think Omega recommends you service this movement every 4 to 5 years, but it's more likely like 8 to 9 years, because of course they will always try to encourage you to service watches more often than they actually need to be serviced. I already talked about this crown at the 3 o'clock position. It's not a screw down crown, it's just a simple push-pull style crown. The watch only has 30 meters of water resistance, so that's actually my first negative with the watch, that very low water resistance. You should not get this watch wet. You should keep it away from water. Even as I wash my hands, I'm trying to be very careful not to get any water on the watch, because these pushers are completely exposed and I definitely don't want any water to get inside of the movement. To start the chronograph, you simply press the pusher at the top and that starts the chronograph. We'll let it run and then I'll reset it later. So the watch, as I mentioned, does come on this stainless steel bracelet. I will do maybe a video in the future telling you guys about how to look for an Omega Speedmaster automatic or the reduced and how to find them, because there are a few things that I was looking for when I was buying one of these watches, and one of the big things was bracelet length, because a lot of these watches are for some reason sold from Japan. I noticed that a lot of them don't come with any spare links, and a lot of them would not fit my 7.5-inch wrist. So if you are on a market for buying one of these watches, make sure it will fit your wrist size. But coming back to this specific bracelet, it has plenty of micro adjustments. I actually have a few spare links. I should probably put a spare link on and move the micro adjustments a little bit closer, but that's okay. As of right now, I wear this watch a little bit looser on my wrist because it is summer, so I let it breathe. It just has a simple pressed metal clasp that's held in place with resistance. Negative in my book, it's not as safe as a scissor clasp or the engineered clasp. It's not as safe as a push release clasp, but for these vintage watches, I don't know if this one necessarily classifies as a vintage watch, but for used watches like this, for old watches like this, I think it's totally fine. It's kind of charming even. So for the finish on the bracelet, we have brushed on the sides, and then this middle link is polished. And I think the seller or the owner of this watch, the previous owner, kept this watch in a really good condition. I think it was polished or refinished at some point, but overall they did a good job with it. And we also have a polished finish on the sides and kind of a cool design on the back of the bracelet. So it's very flat when it's on your wrist. It's a very comfortable bracelet to wear, gotta tell you that. It doesn't pull on any hairs or anything like that. And the pin situation here, it's a push-pull pin situation with the collar. Really don't like those collars, but for some reason vintage Omegas or old Omegas insist on using that system. Here's a closer look at the case back. It's a simple push down case back. It's not screw down, so that doesn't help the overall water resistance. Kind of is a negative. It makes the watch look cheaper. I don't know, do the new Omegas, I think the new Omega with the see-through case back has a screw down case back. These old ones still have a pushed one. It's okay. Not much writing on the back, just the Omega and their seahorse logo. At the front of the watch we have this iconic tachymeter. It's aluminum bezel insert. It kind of protrudes over the case, so you got to keep that in mind. It does pick up excuse me, it does pick up scratches and dings fairly easily. Luckily I got mine in a pretty good condition. Doesn't really have any nicks, but something you gotta watch out for when you are picking up one of these watches, and especially when you wear your Omega Speedmaster. This one or the Professional, they both pick up nicks and scratches very easily on the bezel. The crystal is a domed acrylic crystal. Now when I got mine, it was in a perfect shape, didn't have any scratches, didn't have any scuffs. However, over the last, I don't know, 5 months, 4 months of using this watch, I picked up some scuffs. I don't know if they are showing on camera, but believe me, they are there. A big mistake is to wear this watch on an airplane. Airplanes are very close, confined spaces, and a lot of different things that could be damaging to your watch. Really would not recommend wearing this watch on the airplane. I made that mistake flying to Toronto, and I picked up a couple of scuffs from the airplane. It's just this crystal, this acrylic crystal is a scuff magnet. Now normally I would put that as a negative, the fact that this watch doesn't have a sapphire crystal, it only has an acrylic crystal. However, for this watch I think it's forgivable because I went in
knowing that it has an acrylic crystal, and I think it's part of the charm. It gives this watch some very interesting and cool viewing angles. So if you look at this watch from this angle, it almost looks like the dial is pressed up all the way against the crystal. Speaking of the dial, Omega Speedmasters are known for their clean, crisp dials that are easy to read. The set of hands is very easy to read, very visible against the black background of the dial. We also have this running minute track. Our marks are loomed. Here's a loom shot on the screen. As you can see, the loom is still pretty good. Now, a lot of these old Omega Speedmasters are starting to yellow in terms of their loom. They're starting to pick up that patina. Mine is just beginning to do that, so I'm excited to see how the color of the loom changes over time as the watch ages. Here we have 3 different subdials. So we'll start from the one by the 3 o'clock position. That's the subdial for the seconds running track for the main watch keeping. The one by the 9 o'clock position, that's a 30-minute timer for the chronograph. The one by the 6 o'clock position, that's a 12-hour timer for the chronograph. So let's actually reset the chronograph. You push it again with the top pusher and the bottom pusher here to reset it. And as you can see, mine resets perfectly to 0, something that you really have to test out when you buy one of these watches, especially a used model. By the 12 o'clock position, we have Omega, Omega logo, Seamaster, and automatic. I think it has a little bit too much writing. I wish they didn't include that automatic written there. I think it's just too much. 3 lines of writing plus an Omega logo is too much. And also all the way down at the bottom by the 6 o'clock position, we have Swiss made. Some people dislike the Arabics 5, 10, 20, 25, 35, and so on. These minute increments because it clutters the dial, especially since this watch is smaller than the professional, so it already has a smaller dial to begin with. I actually don't mind it. I think it's a nice throwback to the racing days of Omega Speedmaster. Of course, Speedmasters started as racing watches before they became moon watches.
Alright, so that was the review of Omega Speedmaster Automatic. As you can tell, I'm still in love with that watch. It was a grail watch for me for a long time, and I'm so happy that I bought it. I find myself wearing it at least once or twice every week. If you follow me on Instagram, you probably noticed that I post pictures of this watch very often because I still love it so much. Yes, it has some negatives, and I mentioned all the negatives in this review, but overall, in my book, it's still a winner, especially for that price. I appreciate you watching this video until the end. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, that always helps, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what was your grail watch that you wanted for a real long time, and then after you got it, it was everything you ever wanted. I always enjoy reading your comments. By the way, today on my wrist, I'm wearing Swiss watch company Diver. I did a full review of this watch. That video can be found on the channel. I will also link it in the description below. Also, in the description below, there is a secret link. Have a look if you're curious. Thanks for watching this review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had fun, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Hey buddy, are you in the water? Bunch, are you enjoying water?